Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. Happy Wednesday, coming off the Blake Snell news from last night, who signed a 5-year, $182 million deal with the Dodgers, further expanding the, distance between the teams, which right now seems about like the distance between the Earth and the Moon, as far as where these teams are, both as organizations, rosters, pretty much everything about them. The Dodgers are over here discovering hoverboards, and the Giants are still trying to figure the wheel out. It kind of feels like right now. So where do we go from here? I mean, first let's look at the deal for Blake Snell, which kudos to Snell. He got a 5-year, $182 million deal. That's 36.4 roughly million average for him. Obviously, there's some deferred money in there. Whatever. The Dodgers are going to do what they're going to do, but kudos to him. I can't blame him one bit, especially if the Giants weren't willing to go to 5 years, which from all reports out there, they weren't willing to go beyond 4 that I've seen. I can't blame him one bit. He's taking the bag, and the best team in the world just happened to be the ones willing to give it to him. So could that deal go south for the Dodgers? I mean, that's a lot of money for a guy that hasn't pitched more than 130 innings more than 2 times in his career. And that's a lot of years where he's dealt with injuries. He's not gone deep in games. There are a lot of reasons to be hesitant on that. But the reality is the Dodgers are paying him for the second half in October. That's what they're paying him for. They could put him on ice and then thaw him out in July every year. They would. They want this guy down the stretch run and in the playoffs to be at his best. And that's what they're paying him for. So they're willing to pay a premium to win and win it all. And, we haven't seen that willingness from the Giants yet. But so good for Snell. I mean, it sucks as a Giants fan. Like, there's no way around it. This hurts because it feels like the best way for the Giants to have an opportunity to compete with the Dodgers was through their pitching. And having a guy like Snell that is one of the best pitchers in the world when he's on would have given you a shot in a short series with LA. Now you would have to face that guy. So if I'm being brutally honest looking at the Giants, this team does not have a shot at competing with LA. Not in the regular season, not in the playoffs. I don't care what they add. I don't care if they go out and get Corbin Burns. I don't care if they go get Max Fried. I don't care who they add. This team is not competing with LA in the next couple of years. Like, that's just the reality. We could argue if they might be able to squeak into a playoff contention and be able to compete even with the San Diegos, which there's a huge size gap there. But or the Arizonas, which again, there's a pretty significant gap between the Giants and Arizona even right now. But this gap between LA and the Giants is insurmountable in the next couple of years because the one pathway that you could have made a case that the Giants could try and compete with them through pitching and defense, LA's already elite in that regard. They have elite pitching, they have an elite bullpen, and they have elite defense. Where are you going to compete with a team that already does that? And then, oh yeah, by the way, they also have 3 MVPs in their lineup. And their rotation now has, Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, and that Shohei Ohtani guy is now going to be pitching again come next season. So, I mean, frankly, it is time for the Giants to take an honest look at themselves in the mirror and do some serious self-reflection on where they are as a franchise, where they are as an organization, and where to go from here. Because really, every move they make this offseason should not have 2025 in mind. As far as, like, if they're trying to sign guys, they should not be making moves trying to figure out a way to win 86 games next season. They should not be making moves that are going to impact their long term, which means, if you're going to go sign a Corbin Burns where the deal could easily go south quickly and you're going to be stuck with a long-term deal with long-term money, it's something you got to seriously consider because you're also getting a qualifying offer guy where you're going to lose 2 draft picks and $1 million in international bonus money. And I've sat here and said, go ahead and be willing to do that. I pushed for Snell over the other guys because of the lack of an attachment to that, because I felt like if you were going to go get a qualifying offer guy, it should be to focus on the lineup right now and then try and bring Snell back to keep your staff pretty solid. But if you make that move, like that's super risky and you may kind of put your long-term health as an organization in jeopardy doing something like that. Same with a guy like Freed, who's had some serious arm troubles. You look at those two guys, they have their question marks. Burns' effectiveness has been kind of the warning signs are there that it's going downhill, and Freed has had some arm issues. So there are some serious concerns with those deals. And you could look into guys like Hassan Kim, but what is that honestly going to do for you? You're not going to compete next season. And unless you think you're going to create like a Korean super team and have like a competitive advantage in the Korean market, what's it really going to do? Are you going to compete with the Dodgers in the next 2 or 3 years? Because I don't see any pathway to that right now. So, and I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here and say like, what's the point of even bothering with any of this? But they really need to just start making these moves that are for the long term. And it sucks. And none of us should be over here happy that this is what the product we've gotten. But the reality is, we're getting dangerously close to the point where the Giants really need to just embrace the suck, at least for 2025. Embrace the suck. Go out there, play the kids, get a proper internal evaluation of the young guys at the major league level for 2025. Give Harar, Matos, Luciano, Schmidt, Fitz, Ramos, Lee, Bailey. Just give all these guys all the runway in the world. Let them play. It might get ugly. It probably will get ugly at times. Just let them play. See what happens. See what you've got. See what they develop. Let the young guys pitch. Go out there and let Roop, Birdsong, and Harrison be your starting rotation. Bring Wisenhunt up at some point. Give him some starts. Let the kids go out there and play, because if you go out there and you sacrifice your future and you straddle yourself with a bunch of long-term deals for guys that are aging and probably not going to be great, it's a very easy way to turn the 7-8 years of irrelevancy you've been, minus the one crazy year in 2021. It's a very easy way to turn the 7 years of irrelevancy into 17 years of irrelevancy. If you just keep kicking the can down the road and you do nothing to address the farm system, the talent level, the development in your system, any of that stuff. And, we got the draft lottery coming up in a couple weeks. Maybe you luck into a bit good pick there. Obviously, the Reds and the Guardians had worse picks or worse odds last season when they got the top two picks. Maybe you get lucky, you get a top pick there. But is bottoming out really the end of the world for a year? Because at the end of the day, yeah, does anyone like rooting for the White Sox or the Reds or the A's or any of those teams? No, nobody does. It sucks. But it's a good way to get top end talent real fast. And if you can do that while also having some young guys that are ready and close, you can be way more aggressive in 2026. There's a lot of guys that are going to be on the free agent market. Guys like Vladdy Jr., guys like Bo Bichette that are going to be on the market. Now, if you're a crappy team, it's going to be a little harder to convince those guys. But if you also have a bunch of young, talented players, if some of these guys step up and you have at least that appearance that you're not as far off as people might, as your record might indicate, you have a shot. That and a big old pile of money, which that's going to be an ownership thing. They're going to have to reach into those real estate funds that they're creating and actually start using it on their team and putting a good product on the field. And, I'm hopeful that Posey will, be willing to do that. But he's going to be probably under the constraints of the Johnsons. And I don't know if they are. So there's a pathway back to relevancy, but they just absolutely cannot sacrifice the future to chase what's essentially impossible right now. Like it's just that is absolute lunacy in my eyes to go out there and make a bunch of moves that are going to kill you in the long term. So it's sad. I mean, it sucks as a Giants fan. I don't like saying this stuff, saying like, oh, just throw in the towel. But I think it's just necessary. And the other thing I want to address with this is there's been kind of a narrative out there with the Giants that they refuse to rebuild because the fan base won't accept a rebuild. And pardon my language, but that's just bullshit. There are tons of Giants fans that would embrace watching the young guys play, that would embrace them fully committing to a direction, admitting where they are as a franchise, and doing what is best to become relevant and actual perennial contenders again in the fastest possible way, which is through homegrown internal development, young, controllable stars. That is the fastest pathway back to relevancy. There is no debating this. You're not going to get back and have a sustained model of success and build a Dodgers type, team that can just sit there and win 100 plus games without the internal development first. That is absolute. And there are tons of fans. Yes, there is a very vocal minority out there that is going to whine and piss and moan on X about and all these different forums and call-in radios, and they're going to be the very vocal minority that's going to sit there and say, we're the Giants, we should never have to rebuild. Well, you know what? 10 years of mismanagement of a roster, this is where we're at. We're going to have to rebuild. Like, unfortunately, they're right. The Giants shouldn't have to rebuild. But when you have a crappy team and a crappy farm system, this is where you're at. You got to figure it out. And you're going to have to rebuild to an extent. Now, that doesn't mean you do absolutely nothing this free agency. There are moves that I am still behind. I am still 100% behind making a move for a Willy Adames because I believe something like that does help your future because it's going to help a guy like Bryce Eldridge. And you have absolutely nothing at shortstop. So you're not blocking anyone. You're not, you're making a move that is going to help both you be a little more competitive now, and it helps the future. So I'm okay with stuff like that. If you really want to go the Kim route, I get it. It doesn't really hurt you because the deal's probably not going to be that expensive. You could do Kim and you can get a mid-level rotation starter just so you can try and win a few more games or whatever. But they've got to move off of the Yaz's, the Flades, they already got Slater out the door, but they've got to move on from playing these vets because we are spinning our tires right now. Like, that's it. I mean, we play all those guys all year. All we're staring down is 78 to 81 wins and a fourth place finish. So they really need to turn the page to 2020, to the future and do what's best as an organization for that. Now, a lot of offseason to go. Sorry, everybody. Thanks for sticking through the rant. A lot of offseason to go. Hopefully, Posey demonstrates some kind of direction as an organization with this offseason. There are pathways to competing. I just don't see any pathways to beating LA. And at that point, I don't want to see anything done that is going to hurt the long term. I know I've said that like half dozen times now, but I just cannot stress that hard enough. They have to be very careful with what they do this offseason because you really just can't jeopardize the long term. Now, you can make a bold trade for a Bo Bichette who's 25 years old or 26 years old and extend him. I'm okay with something like that because he's young, but I don't want to see them, breaking the bank for Kim or breaking the bank for Fried or Burns and watching these deals deteriorate in a few years. So that was a bit of a scatterbrained thing. Sorry, I didn't really write any of this down. That was just kind of pure frustration from me watching what this organization has done to our franchise and just seeing where they're at right now and seeing the colossal gap between them and LA. And it's just an embarrassment as a whole. But let me know your guys' thoughts. If you guys think I'm insane with this, feel free to let me have it in the comments. If you do enjoy the content, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. This will be the only video this week. I hope you guys all have a happy Thanksgiving. Well, I shouldn't say the only video. If they sign like a Kim this weekend, I'm sure I would put out another video. But I hope you guys have a great holiday. We will get back to the live shows Next week, we will do our last giveaway. I'm hopeful we will have our uh, interview, our special guest, the player we were going. I still have not heard back from him to confirm a date. So we will wait to announce who that is until we get confirmation and we have a date for you guys. But other than that, I hope you guys all have a great Thanksgiving. Have a happy holiday. Hope you get your good Black Friday deals in and all that good stuff. And we will talk to you guys next week. Go Giants.